Now let's look at the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. Yesterday we talked about the 3 roots and the 9 reasons. All of those were also taught in the gate of training the mind, the gateway of training the mind. Another thing was that in the text that it says that to plow in the autumn, and I looked into it, apparently one should plow the field in the fall before the earth would freeze. One should plow the earth so that in the second year the earth is already soft and easy to plow and plant. For that reason, it's essential to plow the field in the autumn to build a foundation. That's the meaning of that particular verse. Yesterday, a monk said that we have to plow in the spring. No, we don't have to plow in the spring to plant. We're going to continue. Yesterday we stopped at the story of Juntunpa. Did you understand the story of Juntunpa? The Dharma teachers can explain to those people who don't understand that story. The essence of that story is that Juntunpa was able to carry out 4 to 5 activities all at once. Did you understand that story? It seems that nobody understood that story. It's okay. You can take the steps slowly. Let's look at the next one. And then from the Yerba area, Shantun, the Venerable Shantun states, in order to discard the desires of this life, it is important to continually contemplate their remedy, impermanence. If one does not give rise to the thought of impermanence in the early morning, then by noon all of one's activities will have been for the sake of this life alone. If one does not give rise to the thought of impermanence at noon, then in the afternoon all will have been done for this life alone. If all concerns have been for this life, none of your deeds have become the Dharma. If you do not practice the contemplation of impermanence, then you would squander your whole day without practicing for the actual Dharma. And then your whole life would be squandered as well. Whatever you do would be meaningless. People who practice impermanence, they would think that, well, I'd better to practice all of my virtuous activities today because I would not know if I can live another day tomorrow. It's better for me to recite properly, to contemplate and study properly, to chant mantras properly. This is the power that really helps you to practice diligently. So practice the contemplation of impermanence is so crucial. And then Chengawa relates by saying that without a practice session on impermanence in the morning, the whole day will be exclusively occupied with the concerns of this life. The great masters usually would get up in the morning and then they would practice about impermanence. I think it's quite essential for us to practice that. I remember that in the memorandum of the preliminary practices, there is a particular practice menu. I'm not sure if you actually engage in the practice. There, within that menu, it talks about the essential points of the body, speech, and mind, and how to practice this application, all of which are part of the preliminary practices. Let it be the practice of impermanence or the dedication of the merit. Each of the practice is quite crucial to practice it completely. I hope you can place great importance of those practices. Otherwise, if you were to stay here for many years, but your mind stream had not transformed even a little bit, then that would not be very beneficial to you. You simply only planted a seed, but other than that, none other transformative powers had been implemented. And then Karagpa says the following: there is no place where people remain without dying. Death is certain and soon we will die. Since nothing is of benefit when dying, take to heart that there is no time to waste. Tragyapa also states, however much effort invoking through concern for this life you may have applied, when you die tomorrow you must have lived naked and empty-handed. Therefore, before death approaches, you should practice a dharma that is not mixed with concern for this lifetime. So, before the time of death, it would be quite essential for you to finish chanting lots of mantras, to accumulate mantras. I see not many people had accumulated great numbers of mantras. So we need to remember death is just beside our pillow. Is something that is very close to us. We can see death as an object that is placed beside our pillow. It means that we have to contemplate upon it very often. We have to see it as something that we need to think about it very often. And then Karmapa explains that death ought to make us fearful right now, for we mustn't quake in fear on the verge of dying. We do the opposite. We're presently fearless, yet on the verge of passing away, we will claw our chests with our fingernails. Milarepa at first was terrified of death, but unlike him, we at first felt that we're not terrified of death, but at the time of death, we're completely terrified. There was a Lama I know, he was a manager of our charity hospital over here. He said that I don't want to go to hospital because they would diagnose me. They would probably come to a diagnostic result that I am probably at a stage 4 cancer, and I would be quite terrified. When people are at very late stage of cancer, the non-practitioners would feel lots of fear. But as a practitioner, since we already practice death is impermanent, death would come at any time, then at the time death truly approaches to you, you would not have lots of fear or feel quite heartbroken. Rather, if you were to practice diligently, you would feel very confident to face death. This is really important. When we practice death, if we were to start off right now, it may not become a habit, but if you were to practice in the morning and practice at night, as slowly and slowly you would build that habit of contemplating upon impermanence. And then Nyuzerpa comments, there are 3 things that occur simultaneously. The first is that one recalls one's own morality. The second is that one gives up concern for this lifetime. And the third is that one practices the Dharma. These 3 things would occur simultaneously. That is, if you were to contemplate upon impermanence. But if you don't contemplate upon impermanence, then you would think that you will not die. You would have great concern for this life and doing evil. These 3 things also would occur simultaneously. When I was living in a retreat hut that is made by grass and mud, that was back in 1986. I read this particular verse and I thought, oh, it's so wonderful. The textbook I had back then was a very rather not well-made book. It's very difficult for me. It was very difficult for me to read. But when I read it, I thought this is such a wonderful teaching. These are benefits of contemplating death and faults of not contemplating it. And then he continued to say that to contemplate upon impermanence can become the cause of entering into Dharma at the very beginning. This is stated in the preliminary in the words of my perfect teacher, that is. And then he said that in the middle, one should be accompanied by diligence so that one would be able to attain the luminous Dharmakaya at the very end. Moreover, from Gyaltsen Tokme himself, if an unfabricated feeling of impermanence arises, then under no circumstance will one be able to think of anything that isn't a Dharma. If one were to have this genuine feeling, genuine insight of impermanence, without any fabrication, then under no circumstance will one be able to think of anything that isn't a Dharma. There are very few practitioners who give rise to this experience authentically, and death is certain, but the time of death is uncertain. At the time of death, the Dharma is sure to benefit. He made many such statements, and in addition took this as his main practice.
Sunum dei tanche zubanya tona ni be jana pashe Jirga nanchi ranon chubaye zubun sonen jowa